Hey, it's Android AT here with another Neat Speak. Sooner or later you guys are going to figure out that I don't have good taste. So why not start the bar real low with an isekai? For those who don't know, an isekai is a story about a person being transported to another world. And the gimmick here is that this person has something special that the natives don't. This could be anywhere from a cheat-like ability, knowledge from another world, or help from a literal god. It's a pretty cool concept, except for the fact that it can get really repetitive really fast. Which brings me to the first isekai I want to talk about. My death flags show no signs of stopping. It's a story where your average uni student becomes a villain in their favorite video game. Which doesn't sound too bad, except for the fact that you know you're gonna die. Or unless you get this really strong feeling that the world kinda wants to kill ya, since you kinda got isekai'd right into a death flag. It takes him a second to realize what's happening. His mom is holding him, and his dad is screaming, reaching for a weapon. And there, on the floor, is a kneeling maid waiting to be executed. And the only thing on her mind is Coilette. As his dad was swinging the blade, his body started moving on its own, telling his dad to stop. And you would think that this would save the maid, but then he tells his parents that they shouldn't stain the room in inferior blood, but instead let him test his new magic on the maid instead. It was at this moment the uni student figured out whose body this was. This was the body of the most hated character in Bravehearts, Harold Stokes. You know that trope, that noble who thinks he's better than everyone just because he's a little bit of money and power? Yeah, that's pretty much Harold. Dude's got good base stats, but kinda has a shit personality. The dude loses once, as a mini-boss, and then takes a bunch of drugs from the main villain, and becomes a monster, to lose again. So in the original game, he was just an obstacle for the heroes to grow. If this was just a game, that would be perfectly fine. But to actually live as that character, completely different story. Just remember, a uni student is now being set up to kill a maid in the body of a child. And that's not all. The final twist of this story is that even though the uni student has control over the body, everything must be said as the original Harold, which means he will always be misunderstood and never be straightforward, just like a tsundere. And just so you know, the original Harold is still somewhere in there, and he sometimes talks, just like at the beginning of the story. So the Stokes family is pretty much It was in this moment that Norman swore that he would try much harder. The very next day we see Harold practicing his magic. He has to make killing Claire look believable, since today is the day she's gonna die. He knew Claire was more than just an image and swore that failure would not be tolerated. When it becomes night, the plan begins. After all this time, Clara finally gets to reunite with her daughter. They have a nice moment until Harold interrupts them. He gives them two options. The first one is to die here, which kills the mood, and the second is to leave and never come back. No matter which option they choose, their lives here would come to an end. It might have sounded bad, but Clara was surprised she even had a choice to leave. Harold then clears everything up. Permit what? Enough already, hurry and choose. It would be easier and less of a pain for me just to kill you off. Remember that Sundari thing I brought up earlier? Yeah, he might sound disappointed, but he's pretty happy that everything went according to plan. And since the story's a little messed up now, Harold gives Colette a necklace, and then tells her to go find the hero. Harold then rushes them to leave, and then warns them if they get caught, they will die. Then the two of them show their sincere gratitude and leave. Norman then suggests to Harold that they should head back, but notices that Harold seems conflicted. This should be a happy moment, and we get to see why it isn't. This was all Harold's fault, and they still thanked him. This was all because he was playing around and bumped into Clara, so he can't enjoy this moment. Now he has only one more thing to do. What an unsightly face. The value of your life. There is no way I would permit. At least if you were to die. Fortunately, right? This is the end for you. Flame cram. Then he unleashes a pillar of fire in the forest. He started role-playing in the forest, so of course he would be embarrassed he was caught. And it turns out Norman saw the entire thing. So Harold demanded Norman to forget everything he saw today and would not take any other answer but a yes. And this leads to Norman believing that he misunderstood Harold the entire time. Harold's only 10 years old and he did something so incredible for that age. But why does it look like he's suffering? Was he always deceiving everyone around him? Forced to hide how fragile he was so that his parents wouldn't start any new conflicts? In this moment, Norman swore to himself that he would make up for the 10 years he didn't even bother knowing the kid, and he would support Harold until the day he was no longer forced to act evil. In the final scene, we see Clara holding on to a sleeping Colette as they head towards Bullish Village. She's reflecting on everything Harold has done for them. He got them everything they needed to escape, and a bag full of money. He got the money from his dad to buy a new sword, and decided to buy one outside the territory. This secured her escape, and the money she got was the change from buying the cheapest sword the blacksmith had. As they've been traveling all night, the coachman asked if she would like to rest before they arrive. She refused this offer since she just wants to burn this moment into her memory as the sun rises. And that's where I'm ending things on the story front. It's a happy ending for everyone except Harold. Except for the people there, everyone else will think he's a murderer. Something that's cool about the story and pretty annoying too is that he'll never try to clear anything up, which makes him look like a villain to everyone else. There's a few people in the story who know the truth, and they're pretty much ride or die, but man, does it get annoying. If you get a little further in the story, you'll notice a lot of Harold's problems can be solved if he could just tell the truth or break character. I'll lightly touch the next part. Pretty much he gets engaged to a family that actually cares about people. And their daughter is pretty much sacrificing herself because their territory is being afflicted by a disease. She's kind of taking this marriage as a, I have to do this for the family kind of thing. And then she finds out that Harold's a murderer and he never clears it up. And the most annoying thing is that he will play into the fact that he's evil and then he'll regret it later. But he'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, but if I can't do this now as a child, I'll never be able to do evil shit. And when she finds out by going behind Harold's back using one of his aides, she can't even tell the truth to Harold because he's been doing all this sneaky shit. And they just accept it because they think he's some sort of genius, since he never takes any credit for anything. The dude is actually like really nice and shit. He does so much good for the story, but he's a tsundere. He won't accept it. He'll just deny it and try to direct people away from the main issue. This isn't a bad story. I like it a lot, but I'm gonna admit it's not a masterpiece because there's a lot of question marks that you just have to ignore. It's just that this story idea is so cool. Like, you're forced to be the villain and you have to sound like the villain, but you have control over the actions. I really like stories where you know the history of the world and you just kind of jump into it, like kind of like a reincarnation kind of thing, right? Because you know how history is supposed to go, and the second you start changing things, oh man, butterfly effect, right? Like how the mom's still alive and how that would change the story, right? Because in the story, she was supposed to hate Harold because her mother died because of him, right? But now they're on his side and have a positive impression because they know Harold's secret and can't tell anyone else. That's just one point I want to make. It's just the fact that he accelerates things for the hero side, but then he kind of fucks things up on other ends, which is a pretty cool aspect for a story, to be honest. Spoiler warning, the dude still becomes evil in a way, but he tries to minimize the damage as much as possible, but the heroes would never understand that, would they? Yeah, the hero's a meathead pretty much, like that typical anime shonen kind of character that kind of like believes in family and shit and trust. And he would never try to learn that Harold actually has nuance, so he actually just becomes enemies. If you don't like look too closely on the lines and kind of accept things as Harold's grand scheme, the story is really enjoyable, to be honest. I'm probably a lot biased because I was looking for a story like this, and I ended up reading the web novel. And the funny thing is that while I was finishing the web novel, they announced manga adaptation, which is pretty okay. It's not bad. You would know the story by reading it, if what I'm saying. It's just that the novel does a lot better job in explaining things, and things flow more naturally in the novel. I just got a feeling that this story is going to end in a tragedy, and I just want to see how that happens. Anyways, I can ramble on for a while, and I have to end this eventually. So please do like, comment, subscribe, and peace. Hey, you're still here? Okay, this is one thing that might have bugged you. You might have noticed that I never named the uni student, and there's a tiny pet peeve I have for that. It doesn't matter. I refuse to name it. Eventually, it never comes up again. In a lot of stories like that, where you just become a character, it doesn't fucking matter. Especially if you never expose that you're from another world. Like, literally, why does that happen? Like, sometimes it's acceptable, right? Oh, fine, what's his face? Like, Rimuru from Slime Isekai, right? Like, fine, he can have his identity. But for like anime like Overlord or goddamn this one, it doesn't fucking matter. It never appears again. Who cares? I knew I made a terrible mistake. I didn't use this name to kind of differentiate the two, but I don't care. I'm fucking stubborn at this point. It doesn't fucking matter. The thing is, I'm not going to care about this. The only reason I care about this is because I'm making this video. And tomorrow, it probably won't matter to me, but right now, I'm fucking heated. Even I got confused by it, but I refuse to do it. And I kind of regret it now, but just fuck it.